in next year's budget. That goes to show our seriousness in ensuring that our public servants are given the right remedial treatment in as far as some of those issues that goes towards not only cleaning out the legacies, but ensuring that public service welfare and public services servants are looked after into the future. It is nice to see the way the member asked this question, linking their present work conditions to super fund contribution, 14% plus all in all, the public servants' individual contribution as well as government contribution, on how some of this can be linked to benefits whilst they are currently in active service. That requires government policy instruments to be correctly tweaked or reworked, and we will spend the balance of December as well as January, when the nation is transiting from 2019 to 2020, to interface with some of those key players in our economy, as well as in as far as these issues are concerned, discuss with our super fund as to how best we could ensure that their own contribution, our government contribution, is geared towards helping public servants currently in service to be able to be assisted in health, assisted in housing, for that matter, going into the future. So we will look in totality, and we will have a response, Mr. Speaker, through you to the member and to the public servants nationwide. Early next year, there will be a specific pronouncement as to how best we could assist our public servants. But let me also throw in this line. Those review to assist public service assisted better, whether in terms of housing or in terms of health insurance, will be strictly tied to performance-based system. So we're looking in totality. We don't want to have a piecemeal approach as we venture into our nation traveling into the 2020s. Our policy for public service will be done in totality, and I hear through this question a reference made to the Department of Personal Management's corporate plan. If those are encapsulated in the corporate plan that is made by DPM, then we will subscribe to it. But if there is room for improvement in the corporate plan, as I said, we stand to improve public service performance and give them incentive, but tie it down to a performance-based system. So those who are performing out there, those who need housing intervention the most, those who need health insurance the most, linked to their own super fund savings, as well as linked to a performance-based system that we might be setting up as a government, geared towards improving performance of our public service into the future. Mind you, Mr. Speaker, whilst I have the floor, whilst they serve our country the most, lest we forget, 70% of the total budget in any fiscal year, retrospectively up till next year's budget that we've tabled on the floor, 70% of budget has always been going towards paying public servants, including all of us here, and supporting public servants running and serving the country in the dispensation of goods and services through the recurrent component of budget. So the PIP, 30% or under 30% that is left, we all competing for the bridges, the roads, the ports, the hospitals, the schools, infrastructures. So whilst discussing for additional benefit in the housing space for public service, or additional benefit for their welfare, public servants also right across the country must know, and that includes us politicians who are serving as public servants, that we all consume over 70% of the budget or any fiscal space, any money available in any budget year or financial year up till today. That's a huge allocation to ensure that public service salary and public service recurrent expenditure is met. So whilst we do our best endeavor to ensure that their health, their house, their welfare is given that incremental increase consistent with the times that we are living in, the economic conditions of our time. It is really incumbent for every public servant, starting with us politicians down to all our public servants right across the entire spectrum of the public sector, to ensure that we lift our game in as far as performance is concerned. I want to sit on the table talking about public servant housing and how best, not possibly through direct intervention, but how best we could use their own savings and government collateral to embark on our housing program. I want to look at health insurance. But the flip side of it, public service must respond back to us that their performance must tend to be improved. And their performance must be linked, their contracts or their engagement in the public service must be linked to a performance-based contract. This is something that we want to embark. We are not here to hand out lollies and expect everyone to go out on a free-rein operation modus operandi as we've been doing in the last 44 years. The huge cost on maintaining public service in the past up till today, and continually in the medium term, the huge cost of maintaining public service must translate to actual delivery of performance, isolating corruption, isolating complacency, isolating voices. Those must be the type of public service we look to operate in a smart, modern PNG. And next year, I give you my assurance, Mr. Speaker, through this question, that we will pick up DPM's corporate plan through our Deputy Prime Minister. We will look at the health insurance program issues. We'll look at the housing program issues. We'll look at the super fund issues. We look at the current pay structure issues, comparing to the cost of living in our country. But those will be looked at in the context of signing agreement with public service and the unions, that their performance must lift, number one. They must be paid based on performance, number two. Number three, as a matter of principle, and I'm announcing today, transfer and shift of public service away from Waigani to the provincial headquarters and district must start to take place. No more Waigani will be centered in heavy public service. If you're a planner sitting in planning department, prepare to migrate to the districts and provinces. If you're a works engineer sitting in works engineering in Port Moresby, prepare to migrate to the province and districts. If you're an education officer sitting in heavy FinCorp house, prepare to migrate to the province and districts. We will start those migration processes. So Waigani becomes thin. Waigani is more centralized planning-based operation. But those activities are taking place in the provinces and districts, whether monitoring or implementation, those structures and the shift will take place. So those calls will be placed on public service while we work to give our best endeavor to ensure that your health insurance is looked at, your housing policy program is looked at, and your salaries adjusted consistent with the cost of rising CPI adjustments. You must reciprocate in trying our best to serve our country well and where our people is. And if 80% or 90% of our people are in provinces and districts of our country, then the ratio must be proportionate to this. Waigani must have under 10% or so, and the rest must be shifted back to our provinces and districts. So those will be looked in totality. And next year we hope to have an approach as we come together to start a new year. Those concepts can be clearly spelled out for the nation to see, and we all work to ensure our public servants are given the right incentive, but at the same time reciprocate by serving our people better, and especially in where our people are, in the provinces and districts. This is where the Marape Stephen government and the government we are part of comes in. We are pro-province and districts and not pro-Port Moresby. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for North Fly. What's a supplementary?
Thank you, Speaker. Asking long Prime Minister again long Islam. Ask him first time. Member, ask him. Let me also, while we are on the subject of looking after our public servants, we must appreciate that plenty he got good work record staff, plenty saving rural places, kind of some teacher, CHW, housing workman, plenty save long the time. I understand that in the recent budget by me Pasim, he got plenty budget sit down for retirement. Now, me must appreciate Lodisha because one legacy issue where there's a current government like Rasim now. So while on that, the retirement, me specifically question me like asking them side long tax. Trango all money work long plan time he come now behind only like go retire. Now by me buy more. One of them approach by me take him. This is money. They sincerely all the saving this money lo take home. Now by me tax him again. He got some that sorry but this plateau on the hand. So meeting him also. In all public service also, plenty of workman staff, plenty by retire. Now they've been paying tax all the time. Even pay packet no you me buy him, you me rush him. All go buy him tin fish, you me rush him. And they are paying indirect. Behind you go like him take home. Retirement benefit no you me rush him again. Me like Saweta so this government he got some that look Sawe block. At least give him some concession. Some that can look Sawe down in this plan. So they appreciate for saving the country for all this time. I'm just asking Prime Minister. Thank you, True.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very good asking again. In fact, a member of the Pomio question blogger and put in this two going said, but my apologies, me miss him long. As me reply, me miss him long, make him total clarity. And me good ask him long. You may look long. Takis, well, give him time. All got finished pay now. Takis all kiss him long. Super fan blow too. All this black you can look long. As me reply earlier, in totality, we'll give a comprehensive report to, in as far as policy is concerned, early next year. Those issues will be looked at. And again, as I said, I don't believe in free handout. There must be a give or take. Performance-based, linked to all this sort of incentive is something that we can tidy up very well. Some public servant, you got some issue of corruption. You got issue of Bamim government car close to. You got issue of discipline. You know, all this will be tidy so that we have a reward system that is based on performance. It's something that I personally believe in, and in total, you may come along next year when you make this announcement on how about you look at him a public service. We can make those joint announcements together. Good public servants who are working faithfully. Politically, I subscribe to this view about giving them everything that is owed to them with no tax. We can do it politically. I will, get our treasury team to model what is the loss we're looking at. But personally, for me, I'm holding back making this pronouncement that I want to define, we want to define a reward that is based on performance. You work good, come, save him. That's a golden handshake for you. Thank you, you go out. Along the way, you bomb him, Carablo government, they must, government pay him this lot, ill-disciplined blue, bomb him, Carablo government, for instance. You say we go and I get some bad record, blue, how do government and the taxpayers recompensate again? The fairest way of the recompensation takes place in the tax collection system. So we look into finding that balance and giving an incentive to all our public service, whether they're currently serving in retirement, based on those arrangements. And I've signaled to both our policemen already. Police and our discipline forces too will have something similar. And so this doesn't only affect, or this policy will not only touch on our teachers and those in the public service proper. We look into our police, we look into our military, we look into our correctional services, we look into our teachers, and in totality, because when we talk about rewards, incentives, they cost and run into the millions. I don't mind giving millions to Papua New Guineans who served faithfully, but they must reciprocate with total good value service to the country. And finding the right balance is something we must do, and the reward element also rests in the retirement package. You work well, there's a better retirement. You work with not too well in as far as distinction of service is concerned, then there's a deduction. And deduction fundamentally takes place at the taxing element at the back end. So we'll tidy all this loose end and ensure that we come up with the fairest proposal for our public service. They know when they work well, they serve well, their country will look after them as they exceed in retirement. And as I remember you alluded to correctly, for the first time our government is cleaning up legacy issues we have in public service. The CPI adjustment, for instance, that's never been, secured 3 or 4 years ago, but government last year and the previous years never fully honored this one or never ventured to honor this budget that is tabled. We're honoring that CPI adjustment. For the first time, we're clearing out almost 400 or 500 million kina is going towards paying, and public servants who have now qualified for retrenchment. So this shows, and public servants should be assured that we are cognizant to the need of ensuring our public service and look after well better, but we're doing it in the context of our budget affordability and in the context of ensuring that they too reciprocate back to us in lifting their performance. So that aspect about, in a nutshell, coming back to the issue about no tax at retirement in as far as their benefit is concerned, politically and personally speaking, it's a very good proposal. I have no issue giving it to them. But the flip side, they must reciprocate, and I want to touch or tie that to their performance. And they must have served very well for them to qualify to a certain level of benefits at the back end of their career or the retirement of their career in public service. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, through you to the member for Not Fly for asking a very good question that will stand to benefit many of our hardworking and long-serving public service. And I look forward to some of this good policy that will emanate, benefiting many of our rural-based teachers, doctors, policemen, and all our public service serving in the far-flung areas of our country. God bless.
The Honourable Member for Lag and Pogra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to raise two issues, two questions. To the Prime Minister and ministers responsible to take note. First question, of course, the Pogra mine. We have negotiation going through. The state negotiating team is working on it. The PM, the minister responsible are aware of it. And as the member for the host electorate, may I request the government, through the stewardship of our good Prime Minister, to move all negotiations in, including any decision to do with Pogra mine, because it's an existing mine and it's still producing. All of this to be conducted in Pogra. As in, to renew the license or to whatever the decision the government may take. Can those decisions be made in Pogra Valley? There's a lot of issues regarding this arrangement. So if government goes to Pogra, the SN state negotiating team, the security forces, anything to do with Pogra mine now, since the license has expired and we are in a process of either renewing or negotiating. All this process must be done in Pogra. That will curb the law and order situation there. Since the expiry of the SML, there's hundreds and thousands of people coming from afar, outside of the Pogra Valley, claiming that the extension of the license while we are negotiating is not in order. They are illegally mining, so we also want to illegally mine. So there are two miners there, the illegal miners, if that can be, if the police minister can vouch for that, because he was there, I received him. There's serious law and order there, from outsiders, not from within the Pogra Valley. And there's lack of leadership from landowner leaders in there too. They are all scattered and they are knocking into doors of all the ministers in here, including our good Prime Minister. I don't think they are landowners. The landowners are on the ground in Pogra. Do anything and everything to do with the extension of Pogra mine. Can I request the government, to the stewardship of the Prime Minister, to have it done in Pogra? From there you will know who the genuine landowners are. They are on the ground. First question. Second, may I also ask the Prime Minister, to reward our public servants and, for that matter, all the employees of this country, public and statutory bodies, and private employees, sector employees. You can do this by, give them a Christmas present by not charging them GST. They pay what you call pay SUN, PAY tax to the pay they collect. It's automatically deducted. Now, they go to the shop with the net of what they gain. To the shops, they're paying tax again, GST tax. We are double taxing our civil servants and the employees of other state, private companies. The working population of this country is double tax. Can we issue them a ID card to all our employees working who are paying PAYE tax, exempt them from paying GST? They're paying GST in the shops, whatever they're buying. From the net they collect on their wages. So I ask the government, our government, through the stewardship of the Prime Minister, to remove GST tax from all employees of this country. We are double taxing them. Thank you.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping me busy this morning. I'm earning my salary and I'm happy. All right, Mr. Speaker, the issue on POGRA and the recommendation that all negotiations and discussions be transferred back to POGRA, I take this recommendation seriously. For the benefit of the Parliament and the country to take note, the lease on POGRA did expire on the 16th of August this year. But presently, Barrick and the partners are still in operation, pending the outcome of the discussions that we are having with them, and also in consultation with different stakeholders. You got the landowners themselves, as well as the younger provincial government are important stakeholders in that mine, as well as affected areas. The discharge into the water system has a discharge footprint all the way that runs to the Fly River system. And so those discussions are taking place. By the end of this year, the form and safeguard discussions will take place amongst ourselves as to our policy intent, based on consultation with the landowners and with the provincial governments. There's a view emerging from and strongly pushed by our landowners that they're asking for the lease not to be reviewed, or I beg your pardon, not to be renewed. Almost higher majority of them, well over 90% of landowners who've written to us and spoken to us have conveyed these similar messages, but we are mindful that our present partners are presently operating the mine and they have the asset up there in the mine itself, so those discussions we will bring to full conclusion when we consult everyone, and I intend in the new year an announcement to be made to the status of what will happen in POGRA. And our mining department, MRA, and myself, and Enga provincial government, and few of those landowners who've been making contact, we've been able to send a positive signal back that they must maintain composure as we conclude our discussions with present operators of the mine. Let me assure the member that I look into considering his recommendations in the positive, that all discussions, if not all major discussions that will take place in POGRA, be held in the POGRA Valley and up in Enga province. So that recommendations is taken on board. His second view on GST, I don't have the luxury of power with me right now to make a universal reply on giving a free GST. Let us also be conscious that we need to collect revenue. And the fairest spot for collection of revenue lies at GST component. Our government has made no increase. Although there were recommendations to make increase in GST, we still maintain GST at 10%. So it still remains at that level. And The other major component of government revenue, state revenue, is the personal income tax. So as our economy improves into the future, we can always look at giving incentive to our people or reducing the tax burden. Right now, the economy threshold hasn't improved. We need to work to improve the economy. And at this point in time, I will be promising silly of me to say we will look at GST and make a reduction in that space. It is prudent of me not to give.
What's your point of order, the honourable member?
My question was that the civil servants, including the employees of private companies in the country, they are being double taxed. And GST is the component that is double taxing, because they are already paying tax to their income. That was the double tax part is what we can remove. Thanks.
The honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, and thank you for those interventions again. But double tax or single tax or whatever, taxation is a matter that any government of the day passes to collect revenue from any citizen or any stakeholder in an economy that operates in our economy. So at this point in time, there will not be any discussion on giving concession or waiving GST to our public service employees. That is government revenue. That is state revenue. Now, if any public servant feels that is a burden on them, they have every right to step out of public service and not pay the double tax. So it will be really not prudent on me to make an announcement that now we will look at removing GST component from our public service. You are slashing substantial revenue for the state to go towards saving our country. So the personal income tax that we collect from any employees of within our country, whether in the public service or the private sector, remains, and we're looking into the future when the economy improves for us to lessen the burden in that space. But GST, in my view, is the fairest way in which everyone who's accessing goods and services in our country pay their fair share towards accessing of those goods and services. But again, these are contestable, debatable policy options into the future. But right now, our economy doesn't have the luxury of financial space for us to enter into those discussions right now. Every one of you come with a heavy shopping list, and I can understand the member for Lagapogra hasn't featured very strongly in asking for a special request. And he has every right to maybe ask this sort of question. But every other of you representing your people have asked for a special road, a special hospital, a special bridge somewhere. Where do we finance them? We need to collect revenue from within. And unfortunately, our employees are carrying a bigger burden in carrying this load. We acknowledge this one. And maybe a better response to them goes in line with the response that we would come back next year in line with the question that member for Pomi asked and the question that member for North Fly asked. How do we give them better incentive? They are the ones paying our taxes and big tax. How do we look at their retirements going out with no tax at all if they've worked very well for serving the state? So those conversations can take place. They are more realistic conversations, but right now it will be not prudent of me to say we can look at waiving GST for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kandad.
Thank you,